The shocking secret life of male concubines in ancient Greece. When we think of ancient Greece, images of philosophers, warriors, and mythical gods come to mind. However, a shocking aspect of ancient Greek society is often overlooked: the secret life of male concubines. These individuals, known as eromonoi, lived in a world of extravagance and pleasure, serving as companions to wealthy and influential men. But what went on behind closed doors? While it was normal for men in ancient Greece to have relationships with boys, the reality of concubines was a poorly kept secret, with the lowly status of a slave potentially transforming into the prized property of the affluent. Join us here in Historical Saga as we uncover the scandalous world of male concubines in ancient Greece and uncover the secrets that have been hidden for centuries. In ancient Greece and Rome, the earliest instances of male concubines can be traced back to writings. These individuals were called catamites, which is a Latin term which denoted an intimate relationship between an adult male and a pubescent boy. Throughout history, previous cultures often brought a young boy into their household to serve as a sexual partner for the head of the house and other men. In addition to this role, the catamite would also serve as a servant or entertainer for the household. Although this practice is repugnant to modern sensibilities, it was not considered shameful in earlier times when there were fewer social or legal consequences. Keeping male concubines was common in ancient societies, though it was most prevalent amongst rulers and the wealthiest merchants. Despite this, even commoners could own male concubines if they had the means. In ancient texts, male concubines were frequently discussed, shedding light on prevailing social attitudes of the time. While such relationships were commonplace and even present in mythology, take Zeus's abduction of Ganymede, the, as described in writing, pretty Trojan boy, for instance. There was also a certain stigma attached. A Latin colloquialism for concubine, prior delicatus, which translates to delicate boy, was also used as an insult for adult males. Similarly, catamite, a term used to describe such relationships, was also used as an insult for anyone beyond the pubescent age. In ancient Greece, male brothels were a pedestrian fact of life. City streets often housed individual cabins for this purpose, frequently visited by male clients. Interestingly, sex workers in ancient Greece were taxed on their earnings. However, prostitution involving pubescent boys was considered a grave offense that could even incur the death sentence. Individuals indicted for prostitution were stripped of civic rights, making them social pariahs. Nonetheless, the line between mercenary and non-mercenary relationships was somewhat blurry. Older partners were often expected to buy gifts for their young boy lovers, and a desirable young boy pursued by many admirers had to be careful whose eyes were watching. A tainted reputation could curtail any chance of a later role in public life. Prostituted young boys could only be so in action, not in reputation, and certainly not within the nearby public perception. In Athens, male concubines were typically young men enslaved and often forced into prostitution after being bought by a household. While they could serve both men and women as sexual partners, their primary role was to serve men. The prevalence of pederastic or pedophilic relationships in ancient Greece was based on society's views on love and sexuality, primarily informed by power dynamics rather than gender. The only taboo or potential shame associated with these relationships was being the passive partner to another man. While this may be difficult for us to comprehend today, there was a belief that such relationships could educate and initiate young, wealthy men into society. In Sparta, pederasty or pedophilia was almost mandatory, with young boys being paired up with Spartan warriors who served as mentors and sexual partners until the older warrior was married off. For the boys, sexual companionship with older men was seen as a rite of passage and a way to gain social status rather than a traumatic event. Are you curious in learning more about the hidden lives of male concubines in ancient Greece? Keep watching to discover the shocking secrets that were once kept behind closed doors. Also, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Historical Saga for more great content. In antiquity, there existed a societal norm wherein adult males pursued pubescent boys, and this was regarded as a distinct relationship with its dynamics. The older male, an aronimus, pursued the younger boy, or erastus. While this is abhorrent by today's standards, even contemporaries regarded it as an indulgence of the aristocracy. However, this relationship was seen as a means of cultivating the intellect and morality of the younger partner. The dynamic of this relationship was quite peculiar. The boy was expected to be pursued with love, compliments, and gifts, but was also expected to resist initially. Any sexual component was not meant to be enjoyed by the younger partner. Sexual contact and favors were only given in exchange for beneficial mentoring. Furthermore, it's important to note that any sexual activity was intercrural, which means the partners did not engage in penetrative sex. It is still quite difficult to fathom how any society could ever accept such disgusting attitudes and actions. Still, in ancient Greece, asymmetrical relationships between adult men and boys were structured and encouraged to impart knowledge, experience, and wisdom to the youth. The relationship was designed to be more of a teacher-student dynamic rather than a romantic one. To be clear, there was a normative age range, which seems a rather abnormal practice for the Greeks. The teenagers in question were usually between the ages of 12 and 17, and high school was brutal because of the ancient Greek mess where young people were bought and cared for under sexual pressure. While their rejection of prostitute status was another theme fully modeled but available to anyone who could afford it, male concubines were likely to be found in the company of the wealthier in society eager to display their power. Young concubines were regularly used as indicators of status. Their rich patrons who were brought into the household of rich Catamites could afford all the privileges that a rich education could afford, provided they were trained and educated in the arts. Poetry and music were not rare, and the preservation of reputation was well protected. Although academics were very important, a young man who could not be expelled, inferior, and living as a prostitute, and an academic who faithfully served the economy that bought him his role, might be paid significantly below the popular male member. If not to use financial power, then a powerful patron of ancient times could trust his favorite woman as an advisor, although as seen, the whole arrangement of Catamites was in a class and power system. Although Catamites could certainly be walking the halls of power with a patron who favored him, it was still a very long road and a highly unlikely result. Finally, Catamites were considered a luxury in ancient Greek society and were mostly only mentioned by the most powerful and wealthy. Concubines may have been bought for a comfortable living, but their status did not improve. Furthermore, most of the young men who became concubines of older men were bought into slavery, even if it was for favor and love. The household that accepted them as concubines was not free-born citizens and therefore considered socially disadvantaged. It is clear that in antiquity, a fat youth who chased a boy to love and decorate with gifts was his vessel for heterosexual love. There are records of the demarcation of Spartan women, their hair and wearing men's clothing at weddings to account for this situation. Still, the arrival of marriage or the mere possibility of growing a beard would usually mean the end of the pederastic relationship. Even in the company of their lover for years into adulthood, the concubine had little permission to marry. They were most likely considered assets to the academy to stay close to the position they had earned for years. In conclusion, the shocking truth about the secret life of male concubines in ancient Greece gives us a glimpse into a vastly different society. Despite the admiration and adoration given to ancient Greek civilization, it is important to acknowledge the dark side of its history. While it was widely accepted and celebrated in ancient Greece, the practice of male concubinage was inherently exploitative and oppressive. It highlighted the imbalance of power between men and boys and the normalization of sexual relationships between older men and younger boys. By studying and reflecting on the history of male concubinage in ancient Greece, we can better understand the complexities of human nature, gender roles, and power dynamics. It serves as a reminder of progress made in modern times towards promoting equality as well as respect for all individuals regardless of their gender or age. We must keep working to build an equal society in which all people are appreciated and respected for who they are. And we must never forget the lessons that history has taught us so that we may continue to learn from our past and work towards a better future. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the Historical Saga channel for more videos like this. Also, don't forget to hit that bell icon to get notified when we upload a new video.